Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be doing our post week 2 going into week 3 record predictions. And obviously we've already done the season record predictions, but we're just going to be kind of going along and reviewing how teams played in the previous weeks and seeing if anything changes. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting off with the Thursday night game with the Steelers versus the Browns. Now, we already know that this game played. However, if I was going to pick a team to win this game, I definitely would have picked the Steelers to win. So we're going to go ahead and start off 0-1 there, and along with my dad. So, we're honest out here. We're honest. By the way, if you guys want to know how we did last video and how we've done since week 1. I was 5-11 last video, and my dad was 6-10, and now I am 15-17, and my dad is 12-20 from week 1 and week 2. But yeah, so we're not really gonna talk about that game because it's already happened. But the next game that we have is the Bills versus the Dolphins. It's at Miami. It's gonna be hot. The Bills obviously up somewhere north. I'm not exactly sure which state. Somewhere northeast, somewhat. But the Bills have been playing great. I mean, absolutely amazing. And who did they play this week? They played the Titans. They beat them by like 21. And they beat the defending Super Bowl champions by like 16. I mean, they're having a great year, and so is Josh Allen, who has 7 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean, he's playing great right now. And then Miami obviously just had the big comeback win against the Ravens. Tua played great after those first 2 interceptions, and it was a great comeback. I mean, 21 points in the fourth quarter, came back. I mean, if they were at 14 and they got all the way up to 42, that's like a lot of points. But it was a really great comeback. However, I don't think they're going to be able to play like that fourth quarter again in this game. And against the Bills, they won't be able to play badly in the first half and then come back and win. You gotta play good the whole game to really beat the Bills. So that's why I have the Bills winning in Miami, despite being in a warmer climate. I still have them winning. However, my dad is taking the Dolphins, and so yeah. Next up, we got the Bengals versus the Jets, and the Jets. Joe Flacco is the freaking GOAT. He's won 2 games. No, actually, never mind. He lost to the Ravens, but he beat the Browns. And man, the Bengals have not been playing good. I'll tell you what. In week 1, lost to the Steelers. Joe Burrow had 4 picks. Was in overtime, missed some field goals, some bad special team stuff. Lost to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys on a late field goal. I mean, it's just not looking good for the Bengals this year. And, I mean, I don't know what's happening to their team. And the Jets, I mean, they're alright, I guess. They got freaking Joe Flacco at quarterback. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why, but something is just telling me to pick the Jets at home in this game, just based on how the Bengals have been playing, and Joe Flacco coming out and just balling against the Browns. Or who did they play? Did they lose to the Browns? I don't know, but Joe Flacco's still the GOAT either way. And I got them winning versus the Bengals. So that's interesting. Probably not going to work out in my favor. There's no way the Bengals go 0-3, but just something is telling me that the Jets are going to win. However, my dad has the Bengals winning, so that's that, I guess. Next up, we got the Raiders versus the Titans. And so far, Titans have started out 0-2, losing to the Giants by 1, and then getting crushed by the Bills in Monday Night Football. And it just hasn't looked too good for them so far, and the Raiders have been playing well. I think they're 1-1. Um, well, actually, did they lose to? Did they lost to somebody? They're like 0-2, or they won. I don't know, but Raiders still a good team. Let me search it up real quick. The Raiders record, frick, bro. The Las Vegas Raiders record 0-2. Yeah, they're 0-2, but that's all right. So both teams are 0-2. One of them's got to get a win, obviously. Both teams are really good, so it's a little difficult. But the Titans are at home. I think I have to take the Titans here. We haven't seen great things from either team. I think the Raiders have definitely been better in the last two games than the Titans, but I really don't see the Titans starting off the season 0-3. Um, I don't know, but I got them winning at home. My dad also has them winning at home, and that's that. We'll move on to the Saints versus Panthers game, which division rivalry matchup here. Saints did not look good against the Bucks. Saints really did not. Scored 10 points. Lost kind of late. Bad interception from Jameis Winston there in the fourth quarter. Not too much to brag about. Obviously got the win against the Falcons in week 1. Wasn't a pretty game. They came back, but the first half wasn't very good. And as for the Panthers, they haven't been doing too well either. They've been losing some really close games, and I think it's mainly just due to their play calling. I think it's really on their coach. I think their team's been doing fine. And maybe Akeem Ekwonu, if he could freaking block, that would help. I'll tell you what. But, the Panthers are at home here. They've been in a really close games, really tight situations, have looked better than the Saints in my opinion. And I think I got the Panthers winning at home in this division game, and so does my dad. And that's that, I guess. That's just gonna be our word to just move on to the next game. But anyways, next up we got the Ravens versus the Patriots. And the Ravens, I'm not gonna lie. They gave up the comeback to the Dolphins. They sold that game. But hey, they played a great game. They put up 38 points and held them to 14 till the fourth quarter. If their defense could have played a better fourth quarter, that would have been a really good game there for the Ravens. And so, I still think they're playing great. And as for the Patriots, they're not looking so good. They scored 21 points in the last two games combined. Losing 14-17 to the Steelers, and then losing 7-20 to the Dolphins. They haven't looked great. Mac Jones hasn't looked the greatest. I still do think they're going to bounce back. However, just what I've seen from these two teams, I got to give the Ravens here a win. Even though it's at the Patriots, I still think they're just the better team and the hotter team coming in to this game at the moment. My dad, however, has the Patriots winning. So we'll see how that turns out. And up next, we got the Lions versus the Vikings. And the Lions had a great game, had a great 2 games in their last 2 games, obviously. They played the Eagles, lost by 3, 35-38. Their offense has been electric this year. Even though they lost, they put up 35 points. Who did they beat this week? They played. How the frick did the Lions play? Who did the Lions play last week? Not the Eagles. What? Who did they play? What's the score? What's the score to the Lions game? They played the Commanders, and they put up 36 points. That's like 71 points right there in 2 games. Their offense is looking amazing. Their defense, maybe not the greatest, but they got things to work on, of course. But I've just really liked how they've played and how their wide receivers are looking and how just their whole team is playing right now. And as for the Vikings, had a great week 1 against the Packers. Had a pretty lackluster. I don't even know what that word means. I'm just saying it. But had a pretty bad game against the Eagles, I believe. But the Eagles also beat the Lions. Only put up 7 points. Um, but I mean the Vikings. I don't know. I like Kirk Cousins. I like Justin Jefferson. I think they were kind of forcing the ball to Justin Jefferson in that game, and Darius Slay wasn't having it. And so it really kind of messed them up. And I think they can definitely bounce back from that. And they're at home. It's a divisional game. I really do love the Lions, and I think they have a decent chance to win more than 3 games this year, if I'm being honest. But I don't see them pulling out the win here against the Vikings. I do really like this team and think they're playing really well, but I don't see them winning against the Vikings at home. And neither does my dad. So, yeah, next up, we got the Eagles versus the Commanders. And the Eagles have been looking great, beating the Vikings and the Lions. You know, maybe not the best defensive performance against the Lions, but obviously the Lions' offense is looking great right now. And so you can't really blame them. Still pulled out the dub, put up 38 points in that game, put up 24 points against the Vikings. So that's better than the Packers. But the Eagles have been looking good offensively. And Darius Slay looked really good against Justin Jefferson the other night. And I'm really liking how this team is playing, and it's kind of lining up with my preseason predictions. Was really excited for them coming into the season, and they're looking great. And as for the Commanders, they lost to the Lions. The Eagles obviously beat the Lions, so that's saying something. But the Commanders haven't looked great. I mean, they did get the win over the Jaguars, kind of late in the game, which was cool. But I mean, it's the Jaguars. So, and then you got the loss to the Lions. Still put up 27 points against a really high-scoring offense up to this point. But I don't see them beating the Eagles with how the Eagles are playing right now. Even though it is at the Commanders, I think I'm going to give the Eagles the win on this one, and so is my dad. And up next, we got the Chiefs versus the Colts. And the Chiefs are playing great right now. Patrick Mahomes has 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, has a 72% completion percentage. He is he is on fire right now. And I mean, me personally, if I was a defense, I would not take that level of disrespect. That's just me personally, though. But this offense has looked great without Tyreek Hill. And Patrick Mahomes is definitely proving himself this year after kind of starting off a little rocky last year. And now he doesn't have Tyreek Hill. And he's still playing great. Got a great team around him. The defense, I don't really watch the Chiefs, if I'm being honest. So the defense, I couldn't really tell you. I don't even know the scores to their games. I just know that they're 2-0 and that Patrick Mahomes is looking great. And as for the Colts, 0-1-1. I mean, you tied with the Texans and you lose to the Jaguars. I mean, you threw 4 interceptions. I mean, if you're Matt Ryan, the quarterback of the Colts, you can't be throwing that many interceptions and getting shut out by the Jaguars. I mean, look, the Jaguars have a great defense. Their linebacker unit is absolutely amazing. However, you can't let that happen. Losing 0-24 to the Jaguars is just not okay. And then tying with the Texans, it's just not working. And when you're going against a top-tier team competing for the Super Bowl, you're just not looking good coming into this game. Even though you're at home, I still got to give this game to the Chiefs, just based on how they're playing right now. And so, yeah, and along with my dad, he's also giving the win to the Chiefs. And the next game that we have is the Texans versus the Bears. And this is a pretty big game. I mean, both of these teams are up-and-coming teams. They got somewhat fairly new coaches in the recent years. Young quarterbacks, just kind of on that level of play. Just kind of similar teams, somewhat. And I've really liked how the Texans are playing. They tied with the Colts, obviously, and they're an amazing team, even though they're not looking all too well right now. If I would have hit triangle, he would have been wide open. Anyways, and as for their second game, I forgot what happened. Oh yeah, they lost to the Broncos by like 8. And I mean, their defense is holding Russell Wilson to 17 points. I mean, I know their coach is not good at the Broncos, bad play calling, but still held him to 17 points, scored 9. I mean, that's not bad. So I'm really liking how the Texans have been playing and how Davis Mills has been playing. And as for the Bears, Justin Fields isn't looking amazing, doesn't have a lot of help around him. Um, Obviously, a rain game in week 1, so that doesn't really help too much. But who did they lose to? Who did the Bears lose to? I know they lost week 2. Who did they lose to? And anybody know who they lost to? They lost to somebody. They lost to to the Packers. They lost to the Packers. And so scored 10 points in that game. I mean, I like the Bears. I just don't think they have the talent. And I mean, it's a first-year head coach. I don't think they have, the talent to beat this Texans team, that's been playing phenomenal up to this point. I mean, I say phenomenal, but for their standards, have been playing really well. So I think I'm going to give the Texans this win here. And my dad, however, is going to give the win to the Bears at home. So we'll see how that turns out. And I'm going to take a quick break. It'll be about a second for you guys, but, like 10 minutes. Probably not 10 minutes. Probably like 30 seconds. But anyways, so I'll see you guys until then. So the next game that we have is the Rams. Never mind, my bad. The Jaguars versus the Chargers. And look, the Jaguars obviously just beat the Colts 24-0. Got the shutout against Matt Ryan and that star-studded team. And I mean, they looked good in that game. I won't lie. In week 1, however, they let the Commanders come back 28-22. Still have been a pretty productive offense, even though I don't really like their quarterback. Have been a good offense and a decent defense. I mean, great against the Colts, not so great against the Commanders. I mean, it's really just how they're going to prove themselves in week 3. However, they are playing against the Chargers, and the Chargers, I mean, they've looked great. I think they're 2-0 up to this point. I'll look. What is the Chargers' record? 1-1, I'm sorry. But they're 1-1 up to this point. Justin Herbert is injured. I think he'll be playing for the game, but there's no telling how good he'll be. I'm not even sure who their backup is if he can't play. So that's a problem. The quarterback position is the main problem. But I still think Justin Herbert can battle through it. I mean, he's a tough player, big player, like build, I think he can push through it, and I think he'll come here against the freaking Jaguars at home, and he'll take dubs. I mean, it's the Jaguars, not the greatest team. I mean, they got a new coach who I think is pushing them really well. He's been a great coach, in my opinion, through the training camp. And I've liked what I've seen from them. I mean, they've had some flashes, for sure. Put up 46 points. I just think the Chargers are a much better team. And so that's why I'm giving the Chargers the win at home. And so is my father. So, yeah. And I kind of spoiled it just a second ago. But the next game that we got here is the Rams versus the Cardinals. And you guys know me. I hate the Cardinals. I hate Kyler Murray. I don't think he's good. Got a lucky win against the Raiders, in my opinion. Got, holding on 4th and goal. Then scored on, the second 4th and goal. They had 8 downs. Took them 8 to finally score or something like that. And then obviously got the 2-point conversion on a Kyler Murray run, which is all he knows how to do, in my opinion. And the Rams, obviously defending Super Bowl champions, lost to the Bills in week 1. Didn't have the greatest game. However, against who did they play last week? Against the Falcons, they still didn't look all too great, if I'm being honest. They lost to Who'd they lose to? I mean, they beat the Falcons. Really close game. Falcons almost came back and won. Um, but I think the Rams are going to start getting it together. Their coach is definitely, gonna straighten them out. They're not looking too great right now. Um, but I think the Cardinals game was definitely really fluky, and I think Sean McVay will definitely know how to contain Kyler Murray to force him to throw over the middle, which he obviously can't do. And so I think the Rams are going to pull out the win at Arizona. And I don't know. I've kind of just been rambling on my words. I don't really know what I'm talking about anymore. But yeah, I think they're going to win versus the Cardinals, and so does my dad. And up next, we got the Packers versus the Bucks. And look, Packers had terrible week one. Terrible week one. Then they played the Bears, won 27-10. So they're looking better. Obviously, they always struggle week one. I mean, I've just noticed that. But the Packers looked good in week two. I say that, but I didn't even watch the game. But I'm going to say that they looked good because they won by 17. But yeah. But they looked good. And the Bucks, I mean, they didn't have the greatest game. Didn't score a touchdown till like either late in the third or the fourth quarter. So didn't have the greatest offensive game. Held the Saints to 10 points, which is cool, I guess. Got a late interception to kind of seal the game. Tom Brady, I mean, he found a way to win. And that's just what he does. He just finds ways to win. It doesn't matter the score. He wins. And if he's at home and, he's got all the people around him, I believe that Mike Evans is suspended for this next game, which is tough. But they have a very deep receiver core. I mean, they got Russell Gage, Julio Jones, Goodwin, or whatever his name is. They don't have Mike Evans anymore, but and I'm pretty sure they got other people. I'm not sure who, but they definitely have another good player, I'm pretty sure. And just a really stacked team, and Tom Brady, of course. I mean, the Packers looked good, but I mean, I don't see the Buccaneers losing at home. I just don't see it. And so I have the Bucks winning at home and beating the Packers, and so does my dad. And next up, we got the Falcons versus Seattle. And the Falcons have started off 0-2. Haven't looked great. I mean, they almost came back against the Rams, which really good team. Almost came back from 28-3. So that was a good game. Really close game against the Saints. They've looked good. They just haven't been able to finish off games. And that's really been their problem for since 2016. That's just always been their problem. And so I think if they can just, I don't know. If they can just figure out how to finish a game, they would be so amazing. They'd win a Super Bowl if they could finish a game. You guys don't understand. But they're playing against Seattle, and Seattle has looked good. I mean, they beat the Broncos. I mean, they didn't have a great week two. Lost to Jimmy Garoppolo after Trey Lance snapped his ankle. Really excited for Jimmy Garoppolo. But feel bad for Trey Lance, of course. Did not look good in week two. And like I said, Geno Smith is very inconsistent. I mean, I know he's throwing for 81% right now, but only 10 points. And, he just can't, he can't lead his team necessarily. And, I mean, I guess that showed against the 49ers. And, I mean, he has flashes at times, and that's really Geno Smith's game. And I think the Falcons can go into Seattle, even though it's a really hostile territory over there in Seattle. I know they get a lot of fans in their stadiums. But, I mean, I think the Falcons finally do pull out a win this week. Really excited for them. However, my dad has them losing versus Seattle, but I just don't really see all the star talent that Seattle can use to beat the Falcons necessarily. And so, yeah, on to the 49ers versus the Broncos. And the 49ers looked really good against the Seahawks once, Jimmy Garoppolo got in there. really excited for Jimmy Garoppolo, taking back what's his. Um, Obviously, going to come out strong. I know he's been working hard, I'm sure. So I'm really excited for him to play against the Broncos. He's got a great team around him. And I mean, he's taken this team to the playoffs for like the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, took him to a Super Bowl, took him to the AFC Championship, or no, the NFC Championship. I mean, he has been good. I'm not exactly sure why they got Trey Lance. I guess because of his durability. But I mean, look what happened to Trey Lance. His durability is a problem too. So I don't know. But I really like Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think he definitely finds ways to win, and he can lead his team down the field and execute plays. May not be the greatest passer ever, but I mean, I think he's a good leader and quarterback. And as for the Broncos, they have not looked great. Beat the Texans by 8 and lost to the Seahawks. I mean, they just haven't looked all that good, personally, and their coach is calling bad plays. I mean, just predictable. I mean, it's not looking good. And I know Russell Wilson is his first year there, and he's got to get used to it and everything. But I don't see him getting used to it against the 49ers with their defense and all that they have. Even though it's a home game, I still have the 49ers taking dubs, and so does my dad. And next up, we got the Cowboys versus the Giants. And the Cowboys look good. Cooper Rush played, I mean, very well for what he was expected to do. Beat the Bengals. Game-winning field goal. I mean, great game. Put up 20 points. Held the Bengals to 17. And the Giants. I mean, they're just shocking the world. 2-0 right now. They beat the Panthers last week in a close game. They beat the Titans in a close game. Brian Daboll is looking like a good head coach. Daniel Jones is really proving himself this year to stay on the team. So really excited for Daniel Jones and just this team throughout this year. They've looked good. And so has the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. However, I just don't see Cooper Rush doing that again. I mean, I think he'll be good, but I don't see the Cowboys beating the Giants at home with how the Giants have looked. And with the backup or an inexperienced quarterback, I should say. So yeah, Cowboys lose at the Giants, and that's what my dad thinks as well. And that is the video. And so I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time.